Hey, Harvest Kids, it's Mr. Carlos and Eddie. Hey, everybody! Well, here we are with this week's Bible story, and it's story number 4 from the Gospel Story Bible called Cain and Abel. So we are so glad that you have joined us today. So let's get ready for the story. What do you say, Eddie? That sounds great, Mr. Carlos. I can't wait. All right, Harvest Kids. Well, this week's Bible story comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. So, Eddie, would you like to read today's Bible story? Would I ever, Mr. Carlos? I'd love to. Well, great. So take it away. You got it. After Adam and Eve were sent out of the Garden of Eden, they discovered how difficult it was to live under the curse that came because they disobeyed. Adam had to work very hard to grow things in the ground. It hadn't been that way before. But then, just like in our gardens today, weeds took over, and insects and animal pests threatened to spoil his crops. Yet, even with all the difficulty, Adam and Eve could always remember God's promise that one day one of their children would crush the head of the serpent. After a while, Eve did have a baby boy. She named him Cain. Then she had another son and named him Abel. Cain grew up to be a farmer who grew crops for food. Abel raised sheep to give wool for clothes. One day, Cain took some of the things he had grown and gave them to the Lord as an offering. Abel brought an offering to God too, the firstborn and the best animals of his flock. God looked at Abel's offering and accepted it, but he did not accept Cain's offering. This made Cain angry. God tried to help Cain. God said, "Don't be angry, Cain. If you do what is right, you will be accepted. But be careful. Sin is close by, and you are in danger if you don't say no to it." But Cain didn't listen. He was still angry at that God accepted Abel's offering and not his, even though God told Cain he would be accepted if he did what was right. Mr. Carlos. Yes, Eddie? That makes a lot of sense to me. Well, it does to me too, Eddie. So let's see what happens next. Cain didn't care. Instead, he went after his brother Abel and killed him. Yes, Eddie? Mr. Carlos, that's awful. Yeah, I mean, anger can do that. It's not a very good thing. Wow. After that, God found Cain and asked him, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain lied and said angrily, "I don't know." But God knew what Cain had done. God judged him and disciplined him for his sin. God said that from now on no crops would grow for Cain. He would wander the land. Cain told God that his punishment was more than he could bear and that he was afraid someone might try to kill him. So God put a mark on Cain to protect him. God said that people would see God's mark and leave Cain alone. Wow, Mr. Carlos. Even after Cain did what he did, God still showed him mercy. That's a good point, Eddie. Very good point. Even though Abel didn't deserve to be killed by his brother, his death couldn't fix the problems that sin brought into the world. But one day, another son of Adam, one of his long far-off grandchildren named Jesus, did fix things. Like Abel, Jesus was killed, even though he didn't deserve it. But when he died, Jesus' blood was able to take away the curse of sin for everyone who believes in him. That's why the writer of the book of Hebrews tells us that the blood of Jesus speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. And that's from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 24. Wow, Eddie, that was a pretty heavy story. I agree, Mr. Carlos. Well, boys and girls, as always, before we let you go, we do have some questions for this story. So, Eddie, what do you say we get to the questions? Great idea, Mr. Carlos. Okay, boys and girls, here's the first question. Who is lying in the bushes, and why is he there? Go ahead, Eddie. That's right, boys and girls. It's Abel, and he's lying there because of what Cain did to him. Next question. Why did Cain kill his brother Abel? That's right, you got it. Because Cain was jealous that Abel's offering was accepted by God, and Cain was angry that God rejected his offering. Last question, boys and girls. How does our anger make us like Cain? That's a good question, Eddie. Well, like Cain, we can get angry when things don't go our way or when we don't get what we want. That's true. And, Mr. Carlos, sometimes when we get angry, we do things that we wish we wouldn't have done. Or we even say things that we wish we wouldn't have said. Yeah, Eddie, unfortunately, that is very true. Anger can be very destructive. So, well, boys and girls, those are our questions that we have for this week's lesson. So I hope you learned something from it. And as always, you are loved.